Hey guys, we want to ask you a quick favor. Can you go over to Duckfeed.tv/merch survey 2015 and answer a couple of questions for us?
Yeah, we want to see, we have, if you've been to Duckfeed.tv/store, we got some stuff up there, but we want to see what you guys might be interested in as far as shirts and doodads and stuff.
Yeah, not only what you would like to see, but how you would like to have it delivered. All of this is going to be really useful information for us as we put together like a way to make more physical Duckfeed.tv stuff happen.
Yeah, and it's such a weird, like, this is mild inside baseball, but it's such a weird value proposition doing this stuff because you can either do it, in super small quantities and it's incredibly expensive and it ends up being expensive for you guys and makes us very little money, or you can do it in large quantities, but then the downside is you end up stuck with like a box full of like Mondale 84 in your basement and just hundreds and hundreds of shirts that you'll never be able to move. Mm-hmm. So trying to figure out that sweet spot, super important to us. And it should only take you like literally like a minute or two at the most part. And we'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, and here's what I'm going to do. I've got some Steam stuff. I'm going to say 5 of you lucky recipients will get a copy of a Steam game I have laying around from Kole's big old box of games.
You know what? I got some Steam sale too. Let's make it 8.
Okay, cool.
I think I cleared out a lot of my Steam stuff. So I would have been able to double it.
Okay.
But now I can raise it by 60%. But that's the 160% of the original offer.
Yeah. What is this, fucking Dragon's Den?
Yeah.
So make it great with 8. Fill out this survey. Your information's not going anywhere. We're not selling it to advertisers. You're not going to win an Amazon gift card or whatever these other shows are doing.
We hit a target with the
exactly.
Hit a monkey with a banana.
Yeah.
Win an iPhone.
Help us figure out what to sell you by going to duckfeed.tv/merch survey 2015.
Yep, and vote Mondale in 84.
Some of our landings were desperate adventures. We are now prepared to meet the inevitable counterattacks with power and with confidence.
My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Kole Ross.
And you're listening to a very special Bonfireside Chat, a very special Cursed Favorite.
Yes, it is very special about New Game Plus in Dark Souls 2, this postscript. This is the after credits scene where the Shredder's hand reaches up from the ooze.
Yeah, he's not dead.
Yeah, that's the secret.
He became a Super Shredder.
Super Shredder's reading the secret.
Yeah, it's been a long time, so you have to visualize killing the turtles.
Yep.
If it's been a while, since you've seen the Super Shredder, I recommend everybody Google image search that or watch it on YouTube because Super Shredder is really terrifying.
I'm going to do this now.
He's really weird looking. So like the Super Shredder, Dark Souls 2, just when you think it's done, is not quite done. And early on, we're like, oh, New Game Plus is so different. We have to do a whole episode on it. And I think I was envisioning it as being a little bit bigger because as well as this episode will bear out, the New Game Plus in this game is kind of weird. Like there's some very significant changes and then some that are fairly standard. And I think that I probably thought there were going to be more significant changes. Yeah. It's still worth devoting some attention to, unlike Dark Souls or New Game Plus in Dark Souls 1, which is literally just like the same thing but harder.
Yeah, once again. And we couldn't be blamed for thinking that early on because it definitely starts strong and then peters out.
Yeah, which is a little bit of a bummer. So it's like it ends up being a net positive, but not being quite as weighty as we thought it was. And this episode has no appendix episode. That's correct, right, Kole?
That is correct.
Okay. This episode has no appendix episode, and it's going to be a little bit shorter than the other ones. We're going to go ahead and read your responses that you have to this in this episode. Mm-hmm. But first, just some kind of generalities. So it does have that New Game Plus classic ness to it, to where like enemies just have more hit points and hit harder and drop more souls. But the amount of souls they drop are not, because of the leveling up curve, you're not going to gain in power the same kind of rate. Yeah. As you did before, despite getting more souls. So everything is just considerably harder.
Right. And correct me if I'm wrong, but now you can matchmake with anybody when you're in New Game Plus? Like that takes away all of the restrictions?
I believe so.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's a thing that is problematic because then you get people, who are just in New Game Plus versus people who are level 999. And that's something that they're going to be addressing in Scholar of the First Sin.
Yeah.
There's an item that allows you to control your soul memory.
Yeah, which is kind of a weird trade-off. We'll talk about that in the Scholar of the First Sin episode, though.
Yeah, that is an odd decision, but like one that keeps in the world. Like I kind of like it, but that's not the Dark Souls 2 for me anyway. I don't play tons of PvP, so
yeah,
not for me.
Yeah. Also, kind of like one of the big differences that we thought was going to pan out a little bit more is the fact that the Great Old Ones, right, the four main people that you're going after for the Lord's Souls, drop additional souls that kind of correspond to and are implied / stated / named to be from the people that we killed in Dark Souls 1.
Yeah, I don't know if it's fair to say that they don't pan out that much. Like they don't on an individual level, there's not very much to them. The fact that they're extant at all, like I think underlined a lot of like kind of theory crafting and lore supposition this season from us and from everyone, more or less.
Similar to that though, it could also be considered to be just kind of like fan fluff a little bit.
Sure.
Well, I just like just wondering in the final analysis how much of this actually mattered. But
yeah, it is difficult to say for sure. It was interesting because there were already the connections there, right? Like, so like when you fight the Rotten, it's like, oh, this guy is a little bit like Nito. He's a composite of different corpsey things, or the Chaos Bug crawls into the Lost Sinner's Eye. Those things automatically recall Dark Souls 1, and this just seemed to underline it. And there are kind of soft theories that I like or have read that use this information, but since it never went, I think I know what you mean. Like since it never went anywhere conclusive with it, it's like 2 steps on a 3-step process.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. Inelegantly,
yeah. I can see that, but it is. I think that it's kind of impossible to imagine what our conversation would have looked like if these weren't there. Like if you imagine that they just left out the souls of the ineffable at all, like what the kind of meta lore discussion of Dark Souls 2 would look like. Because I think that a lot of I think it would be a lot different. There'd be a lot less kind of leaning on the first game. Yeah.
I mean, and there's question about where did these come from? Was this part of what was stolen that Vendrick ventured to the Land of Giants to get? Like, the provenance of these things, depending on how those questions are answered, that actually has, implications about kind of the sequence of events and the geography that's in play.
Right. There's questions about where do they come from? Where do they go? Where do they come from? Kind of like Joe.
Yes. Thank you for that Shatner-esque rendition of Cotton Eye Joe.
It's classic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a song for our times.
Hamsterdance.com, folks.
Yep. She don't eat meat, but she sure likes the bone.
She don't use jelly.
Yeah. There's a lot of songs in the 90s about what she don't do.
Yeah, what she do and don't do.
Yeah. The 90s are about what she don't do. So we got to make the 2000s about what she do.
Right.
So there are also a lot of if the enemy is not a Great Old One, they usually give you a ball or a ring.
Yeah.
Now, which means that like if you're kind of min-maxing, you can abuse ascetics to get some of this stuff in advance.
Right.
It's worth having a +2 Chloranthy ring. It's worth having the blue Clearstone ring, which I think you get from the Skeleton Lords. Yeah. +2, which allows you, increases your spellcasting time significantly.
Yeah. So if you have a character build in mind, or kind of what these rings do, you can create a little shopping list to go and prioritize those, so you can kind of live into your build.
Right, either through New Game Plus, just by kind of taking advantage of the non-linearity that does work in the game, or through aesthetics. And like that's something we're going to talk about a little bit is that we've had access to a lot of this content before through aesthetics, but not all of it. Right. Which is again kind of an interesting choice. Like all the ways that the bosses change are not aesthetic dependent, and then some of the merchants are not aesthetic dependent.
Right.
And so you can simulate some parts of New Game Plus without going into it, but not every single one.
Yeah, you can simulate some of the less interesting parts of it.
Exactly.
Right.
It should also be noted in difference to Dark Souls 1, where in Dark Souls 1, as soon as the credits rolled, you just woke up in the asylum again. Here, it doesn't automatically happen. You have to go to the fire and begin Journey to Drang Lake 2, numeral 2.
Journey 2.
Yeah, Journey 2 to quit.
Starring The Rock.
Yeah, they
decided to drop Brandon Fraser.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, get that blast from the past out of here. But yeah, so it's something you have to opt into, which is cool because then if you want, when the first time I beat Dark Souls 2, there were a lot of things I didn't do. And I was grateful for the opportunity to go back and kind of clean up because, we're trying to, spoiler, and we did this for Dark Souls 2 and wound up doing it for Bloodborne. Kole and I both do our best to take some time off of our obligations and just get through the thing so we can map it out.
Right.
And as fast as possible, because otherwise planning is impossible. And without planning,
what happens?
Without planning, I will be upset and Kole will be upset to a much greater degree. So,
that is an accurate assessment of our differing values.
Yeah. It's still going to bother me, but it's
Yeah, it's plans. It's important to me at the very least. But yeah, I rushed and there was some stuff that I could and couldn't do. So this is nice. It takes a little bit of little bit of the portent and some of the weight off of going after those end bosses after fighting Nashandra. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's get into it. A little bit and kind of check, go kind of area by area and briefly talk about the differences. We'll linger more when they're more, not necessarily area by area, but we'll linger on the bigger ones.
Yes, we will. Yeah.
And then kind of do kind of a wrap up in the end and say what we think about it.
So when I woke up in Things Betwixt, and I saw those falconers,
yeah,
I was expecting this to be like Super Mario World. We've 100%ed it. Now it's going to be really, really weird. They're going to be pumpkin-headed people walking all over.
Those guys.
Yeah, those guys.
Yeah. I was also expecting that. I thought there were going to be new enemies in every area. Also, they're hard, and I wasn't expecting it. I tweeted about it or texted you or something, but I died in Things Betwixt in New Game Plus, which is embarrassing. Because these guys aren't that hard or anything, but I was just constantly surprised. And I remember, rubbing my hands together like a fly, I'm gonna go through this again, and there's just going to be constant, surprising and new things. And that's not the case, but this first area does it, even though I don't know why there are just human dudes with falcons hanging out in this nexus between worlds.
Yeah. Human dudes with falcons, the falcons, which look like single they look like sprites. They look like particle effects that are just kind of perched up.
Yeah.
It's no, a bird is not a shield.
Yeah. Not your shield.
Yeah.
Hashtag not your bird. The birds are they look goofy and stuff, but the way they fight is interesting.
Yeah.
Because this enemy fights, it will send its bird after you while it does things, which I think is the first time that we've seen that in a Dark Souls enemy that kind of will distract you with something or harry you with something while doing something else.
Yeah. Possibly. It's kind of what I expected those the overseers in the Harvest Valley to do.
Yeah. Except they're little blaster masters, just hang out.
Yeah.
They don't do shit. But
just chill.
Yeah, these guys are really cool. And if you want their armor set, which looks pretty swag, you can try to get it from them.
Makes you look like either a Belmont or a little bit like the Band of the Hawk.
Yeah. Yeah, and you get it's like a cable ass shoulder pad, an asymmetrical Rob Liefeld shoulder pad. If you have a built dude,
I don't know if that's asymmetrical or if it's just that he doesn't understand perspective. Could be
both.
No,
it is both. It's both. You don't lose your feet as soon as you pick it up like a Rob Liefeld drawing.
Yeah.
But these guys are cool, and then there's also some Black Phantom goblins that pop in.
Yeah, those kobolds. I forget. Do they have curse here? I didn't make a note of that. That might only be outside of Aldius.
Yeah, I might. It's the not just the kobolds, or the goblins as well. Oh. So the two guys that are.
Oh, I forgot about that. This is the Black Phantom guys. Yeah.
Yeah, the Black Phantoms that jump down.
Yeah.
On you and ambush you.
Yeah, these. So every area is fraught with Black Phantom versions of regular enemies, invaders. Just here are a bunch of them. They're not announced, but they have gear that is kind of meant to evoke certain people from the universe. And then there are also kind of these more subtle changes, like the Falconers are not subtle, but the Falconers succeed precisely because they're not subtle. But I think the kobolds actually are aggressive here as well, whereas before in regular New Game they would just kind of frolic and play.
Yeah, they leave you alone. They don't cause curse here, I don't think.
Right.
But they are slightly less cute. Than they were before. And that was another thing that I was expecting more of, more AI changes. And that's not really a thing. And that's interesting. in kind of looking over the differences in New Game Plus and then looking over what they're changing for Scholar, like a lot of the things sound like that, like different enemy placement and AI changes, which were things I was expecting from New Game Plus.
Right.
So it's just kind of a weird little connection there. Yeah. So you kind of, you continue the game. It's more or less the same, but harder. Outside the King's Gate in the Forest of Fallen Giants, there's 2 phantoms there, one of which is a knight, and then one of which a lot of people believe is actually Cyan, who is one of the King's Honor Guard. He's wearing the set, and then the online wiki links, sources the collector's edition and says it's one of Vendrick's trusted elite knights who charges anyone approaching the King's Gate. Not only a sword and shield far from standard issue for his standing, but he's the only member of the Royal Guard around for miles. Was he ever part of the garrison? With a classic Dark Souls 2 question at the end of an IM description question at the end of a description that I don't give a shit.
Is it a sword? I don't know.
Yeah. Is it even a sword? Now you're just fucking with me,
or is it a music box? Flip this switch on the hilt. What if you sang this to a dragon? I don't know. Maybe he would cry, but it would be poison. It would kill the whole city. Yeah. But was the city ever alive?
Perhaps he would do nothing.
Yep.
Only the sages know for sure.
Yep. Yeah.
So this might be where Cyan ends up.
Right.
Guarding the story in phantom form.
Yeah. And there are a couple of these, dark phantom invaders who may or may not be lore significant. Their gear would lead us to believe that, and there are some that are just straight up like callbacks, like in the Grave of Saints. Right.
Yeah.
You have one that reminds you of what's her name, Jenny No Tongue.
Yeah, Jenny No Tongue.
Yeah. From the block.
Jenny No Tongue from the flock. What's her head?
Anastasia.
Anastasia from Firelink. So she shows up. Also in Forest of the Fallen Giants, and Imbro shows up. Yep. Which he's dressed up as the Onion Bro.
Yeah,
I don't want to think he is the Onion Bro.
This is where you before the DLC you had to farm for this, right? For his gear. Yeah.
Yeah. Which the classic Duckfeed.tv pigtail solution of don't do it.
Yep.
I still think is in effect for this kind of thing. Like anything and that's, I don't want to sound unsympathetic. But it's come up a couple times and just don't do it. It's okay. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not worth it to me. Like if it's worth it to you, that's great. Yep. But it just seems like not worth it to me.
We all have different values, and that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is cool to value those. I love Fashion Souls too.
Yep.
Yeah.
And something that you're seeing, especially as they start dropping these old knights in here, although these aren't the old knights, the old Iron Knights, the turtle guys, the kind of the tougher enemies than just the rank and file, is that these Black Phantom enemies and the extra enemies that show up are just the designers thinking, okay, where is there a bottleneck and where are there situations where things will be made exponentially worse by just having one extra guy?
Yeah. Yeah. They're placed tactically. It's not just, additional hit points and just next to the other guys.
Right.
Like they are specifically made for when you are running through an area too. I'm thinking of the Turtle Knight that is on the way to the Giant's Memory, just after the room with all the ballista. No. If you just run that way, he's going to hit you with his hammer from overhead.
Yeah.
Like it's going to happen if you're just running in a full sprint. Yeah. Without checking.
Which makes this a little bit like the Master Quest, right? Like we're going to take this and turn it just a little bit so that it plays off of your preconceptions, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a lot what it is. One thing that I like, and this is a New Game Plus exclusive, but if you're playing New Game Plus, take this opportunity to kill Pursuer when he first shows up.
Yep, me too.
Because it's fun to do that in a different battlefield, and it's fun to do it without being able to use the ballistas at all.
Mm-hmm. And, I did that, and that was kind of the first signal to me that New Game Plus probably wasn't going to be as hard as I thought it was. I was really intimidated by walking into this, thinking, oh gosh, it's going to be a real slog. I think I beat it over the course of 3 days of not really, sweating it. And I aced bosses that gave me trouble before. I was never able to kill the Pursuer on that rooftop, and I don't know if I finally have the chops to do this, but I was dodging and rolling like a champ. I actually felt marginally okay at this game, whereas before I did not.
Well, part of it was you were it's not just one line, one arc. It's like the beginning of New Game Plus is not meant to be as hard as the end of New Game regular.
Yeah.
It's like two overlapping curves, and then it's supposed to continue to go. So like first New Game Plus is not all that different, and it's what we're concentrating on, just because it has the most. When I say not all that different, I mean not all that more difficult, but where it has all the kind of significant changes get put out on the street. But the game, just kind of keeps going. I mentioned before Lobos's slow playthrough from New Game Nothing to New Game 7, and just like fighting all the bosses, getting everything, just kind of going through it. So you can just kind of keep going, and it does get pretty nuts. Like watching him, fight Fume Knight and shit. Like in New Game Plus 7 is pretty impressive.
Yeah. I'm still going to feel good, though. I feel like I've gotten better at this game.
Oh, I didn't mean to. I'm sorry.
No,
like that did come off. Like I was just like, actually, Cole, it's nothing. So shut the fuck up. That's not what I meant. I just meant that like it wasn't like it is harder, and it is harder to fight him in that arena. But you probably did get better. Yeah. It's not just like it's so hard that like, or it's so easy that you can't do it. You probably got better.
I have this magic feather that helps me fly.
Yeah, I know.
The power was in me all along.
Yeah. Didn't you know, Kevin Smith? You didn't need the trench coat.
Jeez. Yeah. Man, they drop a whole bunch of knights and Hades.
Yeah. That area is specifically pretty tough to get through. Just because, and again, like it's to punish rushing. Yep. Like I've already been through this area. I just want to get through it pretty quickly. Something very interesting happens in Hades, and I want to run this by you.
Okay.
And I haven't read anything about this earlier, but okay. Like, so Hades is the first area where where people started saying like, this is Anor Londo, like 100%.
Right.
In Hades, one of the first treasures you find, if not the first treasure you find, is a Lloyd's talisman.
Yes.
Which is a symbol of, Allfather Lloyd from Dark Souls 1. When in New Game Plus and you get that, it's a skeptic spice. Which like I wonder if that's slyer than I want to give Dark Souls 2 credit for. Like here's this like piece of evidence for this kind of grand unifying conspiracy theory, and then here is a skeptical spice.
Right.
Like if in New Game Plus, like why else would they change it? A skeptic spice is not like, it's a good treasure, but it's not such an upgrade that it's meaningful.
And it's not something that they do throughout the rest of New Game Plus. It's not like they're subbing out regular treasure for like 1 or 2 tiers up.
They do it from time to time, but it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen consistently enough to be noteworthy. And this being 2 pieces of like one of which is kind of noteworthy in what it was, and the other one just having a name that makes me think like, I don't know. Yeah. I just noticed that, and I was like, that could be something. It reminds me of when way back in the No Man's Wharf episode where Riff was talking about jumping down onto that platform and thinking he couldn't get anywhere and finding a homeward bone, and the devs literally throwing him a bone. Like it reminds me of that. Like,
right.
It's that kind of like considered enemy placement that doesn't necessarily feel like something would happen in Dark Souls, or item placement, but is still kind of interesting.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, the fact that they changed the item, I'm led to believe that they probably meant to do something. They probably meant to do that. Yeah. I say, why not?
Yeah. I mean, and it also could just be, and even then it's not like saying anything inclusive. It's just further Dark Souls 2 muddying the waters.
Right.
Like you thought this was definitely going to be Anor Londo. Now that you're here, maybe you should think better of it. Like I've been constantly thinking better of it.
Yeah.
Perhaps only the great sages know for sure. Shut up.
Yeah. It's also weird to give you skeptic spice because you're so far from Magarold.
Yeah, you're so far from Magarold, and you probably have any skeptic spices you need, and you have the ability to respec many times over. At this point, like it is a useless item. Like it is on the surface a high value item, but like there's a very specific window in New Game in which skeptics and simpleton spices are useful, and it's about halfway to 2/3 of the way through New Game. They're not useful here.
Yeah.
So it just feels like it might be intentional. I'm not necessarily saying that's anything, but it could be.
Yeah.
And No Man's Wharf, speaking of, has one of the more significant changes early on.
Yeah, this is where they start messing with the boss battles.
Yeah. And in ways that like I like uniformly. It only happens a couple of times, but I like them. Yeah. Each of them. And they make this boss, which is formerly the Flexile Sentry, which is kind of a joke, make him pretty tough.
Right. So there are these shadows, his ninja helpers. That
Yeah, you know, makes sense.
yeah, like you have.
Yeah,
Walk into any skyscraper, any corporate America. You're gonna find
walk into any pirate ship.
Yep, they're gonna have ninja helpers. Yeah, and so you're already dealing with kind of two bosses in one, and also a timer with this thing slowly filling up with water, which it feels like it happens faster, but I may have just spent more time in here dealing with these guys, so I'm not sure. All these little subtle ones feel just like it could go either way.
Yeah, I had the same thought too. Like I'd need to get illusionary wall in the case, because it felt the same way to me. But I also know that I spent more time in here because I actually died on my first time through going through this, and I don't typically die to Flexile Sentry.
Yeah,
but it's the arena is not, you're not at an advantage in fighting multiple opponents here.
No,
you are at a huge advantage fighting one opponent because you can put the mast between you.
Right.
But with multiple opponents, that goes out the window.
Yeah. So whereas Lucatiel probably would have been a liability here, I made a point to clear the run up and get her down here as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do some crowd control. It should be noted again, like if you are the farming type, you can farm equipment from these guys.
Oh, by just doing the boss fight over and over again?
Yep.
That better be damn good equipment. I don't remember them looking that spectacular.
There's no equipment in Dark Souls 2 that's that good. Like, right. I don't see the point in doing that ever. But like it is cool looking. You look like a cool ninja.
Sweet.
Yeah.
That's not one of those changes for the scholar, right? Is a bunch of this stuff is going to be guaranteed drop.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff is still like what's going to be in Scholar Patch, what's going to be in Scholar Main, and how that stuff's going to kind of work out.
Yeah, so
it's still up in the air.
I know that I'm contracted at least to play through this full game at least 3 more times in the next 2 months. Fuck this. What kind of life did I walk into?
We sound bitter today.
No, it's just like
this is like on the whole, this is a bitter episode.
No, it's just like, wow, I didn't realize. I thought that I was gonna like be able to set it aside, like go back and play some Dark Souls 1 just to see, go back and visit Lordran for a bit. But
you don't have to play through it 3 times. Why do you say 3 times?
I want to try at least a New Game Plus on Scholar stuff to see if they do anything different with that.
So at least twice. Yeah. But again, that'll go by in like 14 hours.
Yeah.
Like all together. Like as you saw go through New Game Plus on this, that does go by quick. Yeah. But yeah, so this fight is interesting. And again, like this fight coming fairly early on, I thought they were going to do a lot more of this stuff. It's kind of weird how concentrated it is on this path.
Right.
Like two of the altered fights are this way.
Yeah, 2 of the most memorable ones. And you kind of have to wonder, what are they trying to say? Like, why this particular fight? Did they have plans for others? And they just kind of didn't follow through on that? I mean, just kind of just the thoughts behind the decisions here. Are
just a little bit confusing. And it's like, you never want to play Monday morning quarterback, even though we do that constantly on the show. But like, is it they run out of time? Was it an intentional decision that we can't see the logic behind? Or was it the least satisfying thing, which is like that it's arbitrary? The one we're talking about is if you continue through to the Lost Bastille, there are some more kind of Black Phantom shadows. The shadows, and then there's you run into, if you get to Sinner's Rise, the Lost Sinner is now a totally different fight.
Right. So whereas before this was a duel against a tough enemy that moved very quick and had a limited move set, when she hits 50% health, she has these pyromancers who come down and help her out. Yeah,
and the AI on these guys is actually kind of good.
Yeah, it's great.
Like they keep their distance and harry you. Again, kind of similar to those Falconers, where like they do not like directly engage. It's kind of hard to pin these guys off because their point is to annoy you more than actually try to outright kill you and distract you from the Lost Sinner.
Yeah, to just open you up for an attack from her, which will be really bad news for you. Yeah. And it also, like, it changed my strategy of, kind of just backing away and circling, because who knew if I was going to back into one of these pyromancers. So
you can't do it. And it further also ties, not only does she drop that soul, but also these are pyromancers, and the connection of pyromancy and the Lost Sinner has now been underlined like a bunch of times.
Yes. Yeah. The Grave of the Saints, that's where we said Anastasia was before. And also a couple of these knights. If I was better at recognizing armor, we could probably draw a bunch of different conclusions about who these
I'm
guys
bad
are.
at you. I'm bad at it specifically when they're red phantoms too.
Yes.
Or black phantoms. Like it just kind of
Like
bleeds together.
this, with very few exceptions, the silhouettes don't really,
Yeah.
stand out.
It's just Onion Knight.
Yeah.
Like that. There's the silhouette that stands out.
Yep.
So
Yeah. Let's talk about the Shaded Woods Brightstone path, because that is a big difference there. I feel like Brightstone kind of got a lot tougher with that as well.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
The Shaded Woods, you can pick up Gower's Ring of Protection in the Foggy Woods, which used to be an awesome way of cheesing the Ancient Dragon because it protects against attacks from the back.
Oh, yeah.
And you used to be able to just, like, if you got hit by fire in the back, like, it just wouldn't hurt you. It just knock you down. So as long as you were running away when he did his AoE, you'd be fine.
Right.
They nerfed that, however, pretty quick for PvP reasons, but it had that unintended side effect.
Yeah.
Meaning the worst boss fight in the game, not cheesable. Just throw all the vitriol out.
Yeah. When you get to Brightstone, were there this many boars here before?
No, there are way more. There are more. All right,
more boars and bigger boars.
Yeah, it's like the little boars grew up.
Yeah.
And now there are big boars.
They're going off to college.
Yeah. Yeah. He's my big boar.
Who's my big boar?
Who's a good boar?
Yeah. When you run up to the spider sign door, guess who pops in to say hello?
Yeah, that's awesome.
I love that.
Yeah, it's so good. And like the damage carries over.
Freya pops in. We didn't want you to guess.
Guess who. Yeah. It's Cuba Gooding Jr.
It's Ashton Kutcher.
Rent Snow Dogs. It is great. So like Freya pops up and kind of harasses you on the way. And like Freya is much more terrifying an idea as this ambulatory presence in this whole valley.
Right.
That can just be like crawling around everywhere. Like, can you imagine just being one of these dudes in the town and just every once in a while this giant fucking spider crawls over you and lays a bunch of eggs into your face?
Yep, this 12-legged spider just going out on just gonna do my rounds.
Yeah, just fucking double laying spawn into your cereal.
Yeah. For some reason, the composition of this arena makes it feel like a God of War fight. Like the camera kind of like lifts up a little bit.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah.
It's not meant to. I've never seen, and if you like through cheating 1,000 different like red tear stone things, if you can actually kill Freya here. I don't think so, because I think she retreats at a certain amount of damage. But that'd be really cool if you could somehow cheese it.
Yeah, but your damage is persistent, so whatever you do to her here will still stick around when she's in her arena.
And I don't know about you, but like these were the first two great old ones I fought, and typically are. So I was like, oh shit! Like every great old one is going to have this cool twist, and they're all going to be different. Like Freya, Lost Sinner gets these pyromancers. Freya's, trying to head you off before you can get to her arena, and that does not end up happening.
Right. Yeah. So like, notice we didn't talk about the Rotten because the Rotten doesn't change one iota.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. The ones that the Rotten and the Old Iron King are the ones that when they're doing speed running, any percent, the ones they kill over and over to get the million souls. And that's why, is because they stay more or less easy. Like they start out as fairly easy bosses and they don't change at all.
Right.
And that's a bummer, man. Like I was certain, like when I got to the Rotten, like the poison statues in his arena were going to spit. I would have put money on it. I would have been like, well, I could lose $20 and not feel too bad about it. I'll put $20 on this cool idea that I'm sure they're going to do. Yeah. And then it didn't happen, and I was disappointed.
Right. Or like, they have those oil pits. Maybe he's joined by like occasionally spawning hand guys, the midnight shifts or whatever.
Yeah. That would be awesome. And then Old Iron King, I didn't know what they were going to do, but
that's such a puzzle fight anay that like I can't think of anything they could do. Like maybe there are more lava holes. I don't know.
Or just more Iron Kings.
Yep.
Like hello. It's the whole Iron Court. Yep. Court of the Iron King.
Yes, there we go. Court of the Iron King.
Robert Fripp.
Oh man. But yeah, there's also I feel like Seldora changes in a couple of subtle ways too. Like I don't remember the Spider-Men standing over the entrance to the church before.
Oh, those guys are there.
They were? Okay.
Yeah.
I just opening the door and they drop behind you. I have no recollection.
The Spider-Man 2?
Yes, the Spider-Man 2. They're on the run. If
yeah.
you've seen the Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spider-Man 2 is playing in that theater.
Yeah. Also, fighting those, fighting the peasant Black Phantom down here
yeah.
On this bridge. And I feel like they're not playing little league soccer or whatever, where they're just running right up to you. I feel like they're trying to manage where you stand and make it so that you fall into those spikes.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, Sildora does good work, and not a lot still happens. Like, or not a lot happens in the second half of the game.
Right.
Like that's the climax of New Game Plus is Freya
right
popping up and hanging out in Sildora, and then now, well, I guess like in Huntsman's Cops.
Yeah.
That run up is pretty.
Oh,
pretty
to the
excruciating.
the run up to the oh my gosh,
Executioner's Chariot.
Yep. Yeah. With the Black Phantom shredders. Yeah.
Just so many shredders. That's really hard.
Yeah, that is that's crazy. I remember when we were doing when I was doing the beta, the stress test in the cops. In the last 15 minutes, they said something like adjusting difficulty or doing extra difficulty mode. And in that time, I was able to get to that area and see the Black Phantoms. And I was like, whoa, what is this? At the time, I didn't have any inkling of what New Game Plus or, Bonfire Intensity would do. But yeah, I had no idea. There was a great amount of mystery around that mechanic and the way it would manifest. And I had, just as much trouble with it when I ran it this time as I did just walking into the meat grinder. This is, the first time.
That's a good, if you're a small white soapstone person, that's a good place to put one.
Yeah.
Because somebody could use help for like 2 minutes to get through there, I'm sure.
Yeah. Man, the Iron Keep gets nuts.
Iron Keep does get really hard.
Yeah.
Like it's in a non like lore significant way. Just in a, this is already like, the Sens by way of Anne Orlando, Death Fun House. And now it is cranked up.
Yeah. It's especially bad in kind of that main outdoor area after the entryway, where you just have all of these knights and captains who can fire on you. And specifically, they're all over the place around the furnace as well. So, like, as you are trying to open these doors, you pretty much have to clear out the entire arena to proceed forward.
Right, which cements that this is the hardest of the four spokes. I think, like, if you are not built for, if you don't have poise and you can't stagger things, these guys are such a pain in the ass to kill.
Right.
And having to kill all of them before you move on is super difficult.
Correct me if I'm wrong, because I've never beaten the smelter. But when you kill the smelter, Pursuer comes here, right?
Forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anywho.
Cool. I'm gonna keep feeling good, Gary.
No, you should feel fine. Don't feel bad. I'm just saying I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I don't think he does anything different. The Pursuer still shows up afterwards, which happens in the in New Game as well.
And that's cool because there was so much import put on the Pursuer. The fact that he was carried in by an eagle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's something that's not in the notes that I don't know if you're aware of that's going to come up later with him.
Oh yeah. I just forgot to put that in the notes.
Okay. I was just like, I was going to blow your mind, buddy.
Yep.
No. The Pursuer is something else.
Yeah,
but
it's pretty great. I like the idea of this Pursuer that's kind of like outside of the cycle to a certain degree, and just that knowing that this is your second time going through and fucking with things, they're redoubling their efforts and coming after you more aggressively.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm thinking through the game, trying to wonder if there are other places where it makes sense for him to come at you.
Yeah, I would have liked it a lot, like a Navlin situation, where like every once in a while you just see that like bubbling, portal on the ground and just oh shit. That would have been really cool.
Yeah.
Like this whole thing sounds very negative. Like everything we're just saying, I was like, that would have been cool.
Yeah.
And we'll get to the end. Like I think this is a lot better than the Dark Souls 1
New
Game
for sure.
Plus. And like I like it a lot. We're damning it with lost potential, not with lack of quality.
Yeah. And I've got something to say in the wrap up too.
Yeah.
And just probably about why I'm coming off kind of like, nonplussed and the actual meaning of that word. Like just like, oh, this is not a net negative, even if I'm talking about it like it is one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so you finish through that. There is a turtle knight just outside of the bonfire there, which makes it difficult if you
Idol's idol. I can't tell you.
Yeah, Idol's idol.
Yep.
I
had so much trouble with this guy because that little room that I guess part of the waist or torso of Angel or whatever is so tiny, and this guy would come up and just thwack me with that hammer and kill me in one shot as I was trying to animate onto the ladder to get up there.
Yeah.
You can't rush past it. Fighting is really difficult. Getting there is really difficult. This was just like pulling nails.
Yeah, this is hard. Yeah. And this is the guy, I always end up running to this guy before New Game Plus, because the old Iron King, if I'm just like short a few souls, like I will effigy this up and fight him again, because he's pretty easy and it's a huge source of souls.
Right.
So that's the first time I ran into this guy before I did New Game Plus. Just went down the ladder like dip, 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 business as usual, gonna go fight a king, and then just got flattened by this guy I totally wasn't expecting.
That'll teach you to commit right to side.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't know the name of the king. Actually, no one knows the king, the name of the,
right.
the member of royalty I'm planning to kill.
Except for the writers of Dungeon Siege.
If no one knows the name of the person you're going to kill, press 3.
Yep. Let's go to Drain Lake.
Yeah.
Because
Drain Lake, because this does a couple cool things.
Mm-hmm.
One, and probably most noteworthy, is right in the entrance. Yep. If you go to that throne room, which was like Drain Lake is full of conspicuous rooms. Mm-hmm. I would say it's easily the second most conspicuous room after the Nishandra portrait, but before the room full of masks.
Right.
Like, is the crazy conspicuous throne room that you go into, and you get to fight 2 pursuers.
Mm-hmm.
And one, like that's very hard. Like, this is actually one of the only fights in the game I haven't cleared solo. Mm-hmm. I've always had to summon help for this, and a regular pursuer I have no problem with, but 2 pursuers is very difficult for me. Mm-hmm. And then you get the best reward. You get the Ring of Blades +2.
Yeah,
for doing this, and that's great.
Yeah, that'll really just make you chew through enemies like the pursuer does.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this is a really difficult fight. I've never completed it. But again, it just kind of comes out of nowhere. And, if you're somebody who has played this before, which obviously you have, unless you're borrowing somebody's save file, you really don't have any reason to go into that throne room because it's empty.
Right. Unless you're just, you want to see if they're doing, like, you're literally just combing it for new stuff.
Right.
Which is what I was doing. Mm-hmm. There's a YouTube video I'll put in the show notes of a guy who did Covenant of Champions, naked and barefisted, and fought these guys without getting hit once.
Jesus Christ.
It's really impressive. Like, it's like, wow, geez, I couldn't do that. That's really good. Huh. He does a great job.
Bravo, sir.
Yep.
Yeah. There's also a Black Phantom in the Embedded Chamber, which it turns into like a Benny Hill skit.
Oh, because you're just running around the embedded thing?
Just running around this gimp.
I maybe haven't walked up there to him. What is he dressed like? Just roughly, like, I don't know.
Like a priestess kind of thing. Like I believe she has a mace, some kind of robe. It's not terribly difficult. It's just, interesting.
I was just wondering if it could possibly be like one of the Milfinitos or something that ties into the Embedded's confusing lore stuff, but I didn't notice anything that stuck out that would provide us any solace. Yeah, right on.
Yeah.
Shrine of Amana, it's the same but more.
Yep, more casters. I feel like they pulled back on the nerfing of the caster's bolts. I feel like they track you more aggressively. I only say that with some measure of confidence because I had done the 2 versions so close together.
Yeah.
My first exposure to the Shrine of Amana pre-nerf or post-nerf rather, when we did it for the show, and then like a month or so later when I was playing through it again on for the New Game Plus episode. Like,
yeah, I can't. I'll take your word for it. Like, I didn't replay the whole game between last episode and this episode just to do New Game Plus. So I've done New Game Plus, I think, twice now, but none of them are super fresh.
Yeah,
in my memory, what it used to be.
Yep. I would believe that they had done something with the tweaks.
Sure. I would too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then kind of the last big change that I can think of is the Witch Room in the Undead Crypt. With those tri-casting sorcerer ladies, all of a sudden you have the shield guys now, who appeared later in Black Phantom form, just kind of blocking this, making it into even more of a tower defense kind of game.
Yeah, because previously the secret to that room is you should just run through it. Mm-hmm. Like the pursuers doesn't track as well as it used to. You can just get through there without fighting any of those things, and that was the fastest way to get through it. And now they've stymied that. So it does show that intentionality in where they're placing this stuff. Like they know the points of least friction, or the things that you're going to figure out on your first run through that they're going to fuck with.
Right. And so, as we're calling out these opportunities and saying like, oh, this is really good, I feel like I'm only disappointed because I wanted more of it, because what they did, made sense and kind of challenged my kind of complacency as I was, rolling through the game. It was really good. And, to an extent, I can kind of appreciate, but also kind of like recognize and say, oh, come on, guys. When they front load it and they put in something big and crazy at the beginning, the first thing that you see in things betwixt, being those falconers and the goblins and stuff, and like, whoa, it's crazy. And then it dies down. You still have the memory, that you still have that first impression in your mind, and it's building mystery, right? If there's one illusory wall that you press, you're going to be pressing every other illusory wall as you go along. Right. Because they told you there's something crazy here. So you're walking through hoping you get to the fireworks factory, but you never really do. But that feeling is still there of like, there probably is something up. And you don't realize until the ride's over that they put all the cool stuff back towards the start.
Right. You get blue balls plus. Yeah. I think that this is further like supports the case that Dark Souls 2 wasn't totally ready. When it came out, like the fact that the DLCs are so, for lack of a better word, apologetic than the main game, and the fact, like, if you're thinking about making a game, like cutesy additions for New Game Plus would be on the bottom of my list of things to do.
Right.
Like if I had a deadline, this would be triage to the bottom.
Right.
And the idea that they got to do some of it, and then and the stuff that's early on requires the most assets, right? Like. Just, copy pasting a Black Phantom somewhere, even if it is a well-considered choke point, doesn't take that much additional manpower, I guess.
Right.
So I could see them literally just running out of man hours.
Right.
For this. And that's what I think probably happened.
Yeah.
And it is such a secondary consideration. Like I'm with you where it's like everything that's there I really like, and it is by any like account a bonus. Like the fact that there is this stuff at all is something that we are, we can't say we expect or
it's
have
gravy.
earned,
Right.
Yeah, it's total gravy. And it's just like I would have preferred more gravy because gravy tastes good. And it's good gravy.
Yeah. They could have
it's
done
just brown and water, but it's good.
They could have done exactly what they did. I caught that. They could have done exactly what they did in Dark Souls 1, and people probably would have been happy with it because people like that side of it. Not us. And so like it's the whole bigger numbers approach, right? But yeah, they didn't do it. I think it might speak some volume a little bit that they didn't really touch any of the DLC with this additional stuff. They didn't see fit to change the experience in a fundamental way beyond, bigger, better.
Right, because they're so much more confident in those experiences, and that confidence carries through in the way they feel, but also in the end result. Like, and I think that we're both in agreement that like that's probably the strongest content in the game.
Yeah,
comes from the Lost Crowns trilogy.
So if we agree that all this stuff is really cool, is it cool strictly because it exists in contrast to our expectation from the first one? Like we had to run through it the first time to appreciate how, well considered all this stuff is, or would it have been better if they took these additions and actually just worked them into the first run through of the game? Just said like, oh, it actually might be pretty cool if if the Lost Sinner had these two guys, or did they? Is there value in having those two different fights?
I think there's value in being surprised or like playing on an expectation.
Yeah.
And that's something that this is like be like the fourth or fifth time I brought it up, like where I think a lot of the boss fights and stuff in Dark Souls 2 exist,
right.
Are built upon those kind of things.
Right.
Like Dragon Slayer isn't a hard fight, but that is because it is a hard fight because when there are two of them, and this is what it's like when it's just you and him, and that expresses it's ludically like it's easy, and then also expresses an idea of this kind of like fallen, this tarnished silver glory, and like I think that there's a lot of value in the like you've seen this one way, let's fuck with it. It's the first dog hallway in the Resident Evil remake. You know, like that's very valuable. And I think that they, in most cases in New Game Plus, they do a good job of fucking with that. I just would have like the spaces in between just felt like normal New Game Plus. And that was my thing. And I guess I could see like they couldn't just constantly have new stuff popping out. Like that would get maybe, you know,
like, again,
tiresome. But
they're not just designing one game, they're designing 9. Right?
Yeah, exactly. But even something like having like how would you feel if you were playing New Game Plus and you got to an area and it was empty? You know, where previously it would have been difficult. Like I think like that would scale up a sense of anticipation too.
Oh yeah.
You know, like something like that. Like you could just playing with what I do think that I get what you're saying. I do think that it has some value is brought just by making it the second time around.
Yeah, I agree with you. That was more just to kind of like raise something that was in my mind as I was playing through it. Like, this is a lot of fun. I wonder what made them do this the second time around as opposed to the first time.
It's not like the first time around wasn't fun for me. Yeah. You know, like I played the Lost Sinner. I like that boss fight. I mean, you can go back to the episode and listen to me like it.
Yeah.
You know, same thing with Flexile Sentry. I think the Flexile Sentry is a good boss fight.
Yep.
And adding to them like didn't feel subtractive to me. But yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah.
Kind of. You know.
I agree with your answer to that question. Not that you saying that was a good question.
Well, you could agree to both.
Oh, yes,
that was a good question. Listen, you're getting better at Dark Souls too,
you
buddy.
know,
and you're getting better at asking questions.
You know, you're going to be okay.
Look, champ, Cole's okay.
Yeah. And that's really my concluding thought is like, how crazy would it be if like, okay, there's New Game Plus 1, you know, you have all that. New Games Plus 2 through 5, nothing different. New Game Plus 6, you have to fight 4 pursuers.
Yeah. or just it's just, okay, so your parents will give you 1 penny a day and then double it every day for a month.
Yeah.
Or give you $200 now.
Yeah.
You can fight 1 pursuer now and get doubled. Or in just New Game Plus, there's 100 pursuers in that room.
Yeah. It just like, I guess where I'm going with that is that all it takes is a couple of like just very subtle, you know, tamperings with the rhythm in order to build up that sense of mystery, which is, I think, entirely what this plays on, that anticipation of, you know, like maybe next time or maybe the next room or this next encounter, you know, like envisioning how this thing can be different. It's like a horror movie or a horror game. Envisioning it is always going to be as, you know, powerful as experiencing it to a certain extent, because the human imagination is a powerful thing.
Yeah, totally. And there's another kind of like other edge to that sword when you start following that line of thought where like the fact that there is nothing different on New Game Plus 2, 3, or 4, or 5, like that made sense in Dark Souls 1, where New Game Plus was just the same thing over again. But it is kind of reasonable to expect like, oh, maybe the reason why New Game Plus, the first one, is a little bit anemic is that there's going to be more stuff in the further New Game Pluses. And that, you know, just didn't happen. But you could reasonably expect it to be kind of an arc. You know, but as far as I know, there are no other changes other than changing the color of the flames on the map.
Right. And also different merchants selling you different things. So,
sure. And we didn't mention that very much, but the specifically Wellager in Drang Lake sells new spells.
The one ghost outside of New Londo.
Yeah, exactly. Sells some new stuff. So like, but having there just kind of be progressive changes would have been really cool too. And that I chalk up to time. Yeah. Like it just being like, hey, you know, like we don't have unlimited time to just keep fiddling with this. Like at some point you gotta draw a line under it.
Yeah. And we're going to get that with Scholar of the First Sin. I mean, like we keep on bringing it up and I feel like, okay, we're just kind of prepping ourselves for that episode when it happens. But like, there's just been a lot of stuff happening. There was a Miyazaki did an interview with a Brazilian publication, I think, where he says, this is a new game. Like who knows how true that is.
The hard part, man, is that like there's a little bit up in the air. I'm trying to figure out what is exactly what's coming in the patch and what's coming in the new version.
Right.
And like I pray, like I'll pray to whatever God that will have me. I really want the version I don't have to buy again.
Yep.
To have all the content and have the version I would have to buy be prettier and have more multiplayer, because those are the two things I couldn't care less about.
Yeah, that's the thing. I want to buy the new one so I can go through and see the graphical changes, because I think this is already a beautiful game and I would like to see it even prettier. But
I would like that, but I don't want to have to do it for the show.
Right.
And I want to do it down the road. Like I want to play through the version with that is like that Miyazaki's saying is like a new game. I want all of that new gameness. and then later have the option to buy an upgraded graphical version.
Yes.
Where I can have a 6-man invasion if I want to.
Yeah, and that's one of those things. If this is a whole new game, are they like they're if it's in the patch, they're essentially giving it away for free to everybody who's already bought the game,
right? And who knows if they're willing to do that? So I hope they'll do it. And part of the reason why I hope that so much is because of our schedule. Like they just
Right.
recently announced when the patch is coming out, and it's timing out fine for us.
Yes.
It's timing out pretty good, which is great. Like
Yeah.
we're going to be able to do an episode on Scholar before we cover Bloodborne.
Mm-hmm.
But if the new content in Scholar is split between two things,
Right.
like, we can't justify putting off and doing an episode that's just like brand new enemy placements.
right?
But I would like that to spice up my like version where I'm rereading every item description.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so much. Like that'd be such a kindness to me
Yeah,
that I'd appreciate it, senpais.
yeah. Please notice us.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I don't know. And what happens to the original non-patched version? Like, is that experience lost to time as the newest one downloads automatically on Steam? Like, that's terrifying, Gary. The fact that this game we covered could just be gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I hadn't thought about that. Like, you know, I talk about the Samsara a lot, but also this is like a mandala. The tide's coming in, Gary. This beautiful sandcastle.
We just had to wait until we're ready to do it again, like post Dark Souls 3. And we'll just do it. They'll just start over.
Oh yeah, just do like a callback. Get all of our original guests back.
Yeah,
for
and then
every
check back.
episode.
We'll be back in 5 years.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah.
So Bob, how are your kids? Like,
It's like, man.
yeah. I don't want to do that either, and I don't like the idea of everything we talked about. I mean, it wouldn't be everything, obviously.
Well, yeah.
But like it being, because we don't do like podcast, or we talked about this before. Like podcasts, a lot of times they're treated as like periodicals, and the things that we do are more like almanacs or encyclopedias, is the idea. So we don't want it to be disposable in that way.
Right.
That's the downside to having an ever-changing medium like that.
Yeah.
That you can update and stuff. Like it's the first time, like I guess you could release like a new version of like a book, like and people do that. You know, that has
like
new text in it.
The
but
stands. Yeah.
it's pretty rare though.
Yeah.
You know, so
I don't know. It's just seeing all the stuff. It's like, man, a little bit not crestfallen, but if there is like a 1/10 power version of the word crestfallen, that's a little how I feel. It's like, oh well, that's kind of bittersweet.
Yeah, it's a mild bummer.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We might be worrying about nothing.
Yeah.
So we don't, like it could be like all of the meaningful stuff we'll end up covering, and then all of the other stuff will literally be just like there's an extra dude.
Yeah.
Or he's tweaked over, you know, like it could be not as the new game. This being an entirely new game stuff could be stuff we're gonna get.
Right.
And that would be fine if we like are literally we're doing the same thing they're doing and applying a patch to our season.
Right.
Like doing that Scholar of the First Sin episode, we'll apply a patch in retrospect.
Yeah.
To our season.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
And I'm excited the way our schedule's working out. We're gonna have some time to really like let it sink in.
Yeah. It actually worked out great.
Yeah.
For that. So that's awesome.
Yeah. In the lead up to this, do we want to pimp that US Gamer thing that Bob had us do?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
It's a little bit, it's, you know, in the world of periodicals, like it's kind of old news, but just because we record in advance, like we pimped it on Facebook and stuff. So our friend and yours, Bob Mackey, did an episode about like what we want from Scholar of the First Sin, and kindly asked Kole and I to contribute our thoughts.
Yeah. So that'll be in the show notes, Gary. I'm asking you kindly to put that in the show notes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So you can check that out, and that's worth reading, not just because of us, but also because of Bob, because he's a great writer.
Yeah. Do we want to read some responses?
Yeah. Let's see what you guys thought about New Game Plus.
Yeah.
I'll get us started real quick with Tom Servo with a short thing. He just says, nothing beats that, hey, that wasn't their feeling, followed by arg, now I'm dead.
Yep.
That is true.
Yeah. Got complacent. You took it for granted that everything was always going to be the same.
Y'all forgot about Dre. What do you think? He sold them all? Oh, crap. You can have it back.
Oh, Vivian writes via Facebook, it's a real pity that they lead off by introducing a completely new type of enemy that functions like nothing else in the game, and then that turns out to be one of the biggest additions of all. The changes to Lost Sinner make her one of the most hectic and difficult bosses in the game, which I vastly prefer to HP inflation. And the change to Brightstone Cove is a great gotcha moment. The Lord Soul drops are a nice reward mechanically, but are little more than Easter eggs and don't serve to answer any of our questions about Drang Lake's relationship to Lordran. As with the old Dragon Slayer, it remains unclear whether they're simply fan service or are meant to have some greater significance. New Game Plus also added some cool new items as drops as rewards for the dedicated player, like the Katarina armor or Durgo's hat. But farming these items was a pain in the ass, reminiscent of the pure Bladestone in Demon Souls, and inappropriate and lazy time padding in a Souls game. I think someone at From agreed, which is why many of these items appear as guaranteed loot in the DLC. Ultimately, I appreciate their effort to do something different with New Game Plus at all, but the lack of meaningful additional story content or alternative paths was a bummer that further contributed to my overall disappointment with the game's incoherence and unsatisfying resolution.
Yeah, I feel like I mostly agree, other than the grinding thing.
Yeah.
Like, I just think I kind of feel like that's on you if you decide to do that.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like Bladestone to me. Like, Bladestone, that cripple, like, if you can't get the pure Bladestone, that governs your build.
Right.
Like, that seems much more important to me than like a Fashion Souls thing.
Yeah. I associate the word padding with things that are strictly required. So
me too.
That's where it's like, oh, they're not trying to stretch out the mandatory experience.
Yeah. Let's see what's happening in Narsh.
Right.
Like that, like padding, or go back through an area again.
Mm-hmm.
And this doesn't seem like that to me either.
Right.
But other than that, I think that Vivian is on point, as she almost always is.
What do you think she means by additional paths or alternative paths?
Like, just adding new, like, different ways to tackle the quest. Like, one of the things that's frustrating is when you go into New Game Plus, this is how I read it, or how I agree with it, is that they take away all your key items.
Oh, yeah.
That includes Fragrant Branches of Yore. So, like, if you wanted to see what the game is like doing what's its head, like Brightstone first, you can't.
Yeah.
And that would be really cool.
Yeah, there's totally a great festival there, like last weekend. You should have come down.
Yeah, exactly. You missed it because you didn't bring your branch, bro. Yeah, that's one of the things I can think of as an example of that. Just like alternate ways to go through the main game.
Right.
Yeah. Dalton says via contact. Overall, I think New Game Plus is a big improvement in Dark Souls 2. It changes more than just numbers, with more enemies, soul items, and experiences. The Falconers were a big surprise when starting out in a new game, but I think because a lot of the new enemies being introduced in the early game leave something to be desired in the later on. It's all worth it for the glorious introduction of the Moon Butterfly set, though it did lead to many unfortunately pissed off blacksmiths with very large hammers. Oh yeah, and fuck the New Game Plus Lost Center fight. We didn't talk about that because we didn't talk about the merchants that much.
Right.
The armor that sells you the butterfly set.
Mm-hmm.
Now, or you can get it from his house, I think. I don't think he sells it to you, but that Moon Butterfly set's amazing.
Is this Mowlin who sells it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if he sells it. It might just be in the chest above in his bunk bed.
Okay. Yeah. I've never gotten it.
It's real fun. Like it changes your jump physics.
Mm-hmm.
Like, in a way, like I feel like in this game they fucked around more with like items that do stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like the bone fist and everything, and like I like that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then also it just makes you poisonous to be around.
Yeah.
So, I appreciate.
That's why it never interested me too much.
Because it's super dangerous.
Yep.
Like, it's the worst.
I don't want to fuck that up. I don't want to have to summon somebody from a gravestone.
It's awesome for trolling. Like, it is awesome for like, I think it's Dark Project Mayhem. I'll put it in the show notes. So there's a YouTube of somebody who like got 2 butterfly invaders. With our 2 butterfly allies, would have someone invade them and then just block them into a corner while the allies just slowly poison them to death.
Is that like what is it when you fart under the covers and hold it over somebody?
Oh, a Dutch oven?
Yeah, it's like that.
Yeah, it's a lot like that.
That's really gross. I'm sorry.
I do that to my cat all the time on accident. I don't care for it, but it happens.
Yeah. It degrades us all.
Sorry, worse. He doesn't care. Like, I literally spend, a good portion of every day or two cleaning up his shit.
Right.
That's the least he can endure. I'm literally going to pick up your poop.
Yep. John writes in via contact saying, New Game Plus in Dark Souls 2 feels like a truer experience rather than the first run of the game. Sure, the newly placed red phantoms ramp up the difficulty simply for the sake of being there, but really they alter the player's sense of space after spending so much time in a regular new game. A good early example of this is in Hade's Tower of Flame. You can see red phantoms in the distance past the regular giants, and the added threat forces the player to judge their surroundings a little more carefully and puzzle out different strategies. It's all sorts of a throwback to a pure black world tendency in Demon Souls, but it lasts for the whole game and not just specific areas. I guess from a lore perspective, spikes in difficulty after every New Game Plus, and this is true for all of the Souls games, made the concept of a cycle less of a time is a flat circle thing, and more of a downward spiral. If the game is constantly getting harder, even incrementally, then things are always getting worse over time. Certainly, you can always max out your stats and have the reflexes of an Olympic gymnast, but if you're continuously going through the game to get to New Game Plus 1000 or something, you will eventually be overwhelmed. The only way to break this is, you guessed it, not to play.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I'm surprised we didn't bring that when we've talked about
the world like tendency kind of thing?
Or not the word. Yeah, like they're just talked about how New Game Plus could fit in diegetically.
Mm-hmm.
We never really mentioned that. Like it slowly, circles down the drain and gets harder and harder until it becomes overwhelming.
Right.
So there isn't like that. I don't know how much of it is mechanical and how much of it is story wise. But if you take that into account, like you can't just keep rekindling the flame.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually
the forces of evil get stronger and resist you more.
Yeah, and you get stronger at a much slower pace.
Right.
That's interesting. I never really thought about that.
Yeah, that's depressing. I don't like the idea of this just being like a battle of attrition against fate.
I do.
Yeah.
I need my Souls games to be bleaker than bleak. Like, yep. We all remember the last episode of the Demon Souls season.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because I understood the world tendency system so little that the comparisons between that and the bonfire intensity kind of just eluded me the whole time. Like obviously the world tendency had greater consequences on people that you could see and talk to and kind of available quests in a way that there really aren't quests in this game. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that like seeing that actually kind of resonates for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. And finally, Ian says by contact. Overall, I think Dark Souls 2 handles the pluses pretty well. Never quite knowing where a Black Phantom will be, and the fact that it's not just in New Game Plus it happens in, is great in a scary way, and even adds extra spice to the Lost Sinner. Speaking of boss fights, the addition of the original Lord Soul is lore-tastic as well. Lord Souls is lore-tastic as well, and you actually get invaded in New Game Plus as well. I would have liked more plus-specific items, but that's my only real quibble. Not having to get the soul of a giants again is great too. We didn't mention that, but the souls of a giant carry over, actually. As I imagine everyone else is writing, however, the standout moment is the unexpected appearance of Freya. Now I know it's coming. Now that I know it's coming, it's a great opportunity to deal some real damage before the actual fight begins. Surprising just how much damage you can do, actually. She's arguably easier on New Game Plus, as a matter of fact. But the first time I saw it, it was a real what the F moment, and undoubtedly a highlight of the whole game. Arachna awesome.
Yeah.
Portmanteaus are out of control.
Yeah, I know. We've reached max portmanteau.
Yeah.
Or as I say, peak
portmanteau much.
Yeah. Peak manteau.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's again, I'm reminded of a plot point from a Chuck Palahniuk book called Rant. If I can go on to this for like a little second. The main character's mom got so tired of people of like her family eating her dinners, like her Sunday dinners, too quickly. Mm-hmm. Just like wolfing them down, that she started like baking little toys and stuff into the food. Oh, like just little, like not lethal if you'd swallow it, but just like all this kind of stuff. And because everybody knew, mom's dinner is going to have the shit, it forced you to slow down and really savor every bite of it. It's kind of like eating really good fish and making sure you don't got bones in there. You're gonna savor it a little bit more. And I have to wonder if you're gonna chomp down on a little baby Jesus, helps you enjoy this a little bit more, or kind of like lends to that extra spice that we're talking about.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I can see the argument for that. Yeah, thanks everybody.
Yeah,
we appreciate it.
Yes, we do.
What are we doing next time, Kole?
Next time we are talking about the only word I can think of is irascible 3D.game heroes.
Yeah, that's scamp.
Yep. It is a pretty scamp-like game.
It's very scampish, and not scamps like Morrowind scamps.
Right.
Good scamps,
and not butter and garlic covered shrimp, although that is delicious.
Scampi.
Yep.
I'm Scampi.
Yeah, Scamperson. Don't sit on my couch, Scamperson. You're gonna leave some oil stains.
I'm gonna leave a trail of butter and garlic.
Is he some kind of slug?
He's a Scampi.
Yeah.
Like, He's Scampy, the Scampy Scamp.
Careful, the plate's hot.
Don't touch me without your mouth.
I'd recommend using a fork.
Yeah, use this special one with 2 prongs.
But anyway, we're going to do an episode about 3D Dot Game Heroes.
About Scampies. We're going to do an episode about shellfish.
It's our shrimp cast.
It's
our prawn cast.
Yeah, prawn cast, very good. So 3D Game Heroes. It's good. It's gonna be fun to talk about.
Yep.
It's Zelda 1 though.
Yep.
So if you will like this game if you like Zelda 1.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't care for Zelda 1, I would recommend it.
Right.
It is one of the most loving homages I've seen. So
yeah.
After that, we're doing something I'm super excited to talk about, and that is Shovel Knight.
Mm-hmm.
I downloaded that on my 3DS, so I bought that. I like that game so much, I bought it twice.
Yeah.
And just so I can play it on the road, and god damn, is it good.
It's
so good.
I'm excited to have something short to play for assignment too. That's going to be good. That's going to be a breezy 2 days.
Yeah, it's super breezy, but it's like you want more.
Oh, it's fantastic.
It's not like, it's not like
it.
you get through it and you're like, that was appropriately linked. It's more like, hurt me more.
Yep. Give me Shield Girl, finally, please.
Oh, yeah. Like it is so good. So good. And that is like a 2D Dark Souls and also Zelda inspired platformer
Zelda
that came
2
out.
inspired.
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy, isn't it? We didn't do that intentionally.
Yeah, it's awesome though, because I'm on the record. I like Zelda 2.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's super cool. And then after that, Lords of the Fallen.
Mm-hmm. With the broad thesis of this being like, hey, here's this whole new crop of games that is cribbing from stuff that came before it. With Shovel Knight taking its death mechanic from Dark Souls a little bit, and 3D Dot Game Heroes doing the Zelda thing, the old school aesthetic. Really, we were just looking for an excuse to play 3D Dot Game Heroes.
Yes.
And then Lords of the Fallen being marketed, or at least spoken about in the press primarily, as a Souls-alike. Really makes us want to do this. It's very similar to our to one of our other shows on the network. Watch out for Fireballs. This is going to turn into that show for a little bit. But yeah, I'm looking forward to going through these.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm super excited. Yeah. So it does mean kind of double homework for the while, but it's worth it. Yeah. So if you have thoughts about any of those, we'll be doing our standard appendices things somewhat in those, in various kind of ways. We're not doing them exactly the same with Lords of the Fallen.
Right.
But we're interested in what you have to say.
Yeah.
So hit us up at Duckfeed.tv/contact.
Correct. As we said at the beginning of the episode, we are looking for some help in determining how we do merchandise. So go to Duckfeed.tv/merch survey 2015 and answer a couple of questions there. That is really going to help us out.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Mm-hmm. I would really appreciate your help. And we have 8 Steam games we'll give away to people who help us out with that. And they're random. And if you have them, I'm sorry. So we'll figure something out.
Yeah, we'll talk.
Yeah. So I don't think we have anything else. So what should they do, Cole?
They should consider helping us out on Patreon, and also they should seek strength because the rest will follow.
Indeed. Mbasa.
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 And we all pray that we will have far more soon.
Make it great with 8.
That's 8 Steam games.
Yep.
Do you already have them? Too bad.
Yep.
It's a real miscellaneous.